Trick question. Principal and interest versus interest only. Which gives you better servicing? So to break down a common misconception, guys, of principal and interest versus interest only and which one actually boosts your servicing. What's really important to note for those of you who don't know, principal and interest, you're obviously paying off the interest component of the loan whilst also paying down the actual principal balance, the actual balance of the loan as well. Whereas interest only, you don't pay off the balance, you purely pay off the interest component of the loan. Now, the common misconception is that just because the interest loan component is cheaper, because obviously you're not paying off the principal at the same time, that because it's cheaper, it should also mean that your serviceability is better. But what is actually the case a lot of the time is your serviceability is actually better on a principal and interest loan. Now, the reason for this is because your principal and interest loan might be a 30-year time frame, whereas your interest-only loan, it may still be a 30-year time frame, but 5 years of that may be interest-only, and then it might be a 25-year pay down of the principal in that example. Now, when you look at the two, the 30-year pay down versus a 25-year pay down, when the banks run your servicing, they don't use it on the 5 years at the lower amount, they use it at the 25 years at the actual higher amount, because you obviously need to pay off the same amount of debt, but in a 5 years sooner. So you're gonna have to make higher repayments over that same period of time to then actually balance it out and pay out the same amount of loan. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that makes principal and interest loans better than interest only. It just means you need to factor it into the equation, depending on what you're doing from a lending solution, depending on what you're doing from a creative lending scenario as well. But just because the servicing is slightly better from a principal and interest perspective, it doesn't mean that the interest only isn't the way you should go. So there's a lot of things to weigh in and factor into the equation, but fun fact, a simple case-by-case scenario, looking at it exactly like that, a principal and interest loan will actually give you better servicing than the interest only.